Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest fights to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Well, how about if I tell you about the first one I got?
Sure.
I had black and tans when I was younger, and I went for a long time without dogs. And I was just too busy with the family thing, and I coached hockey and all kinds of things. And I always said, "You're going to get another dog. You're going to go coon hunting again." And I started trying to do a little research, and there's a little Trap and Trail magazine that used to be out, and I got that because I do a lot of trapping, and Gary ran ads in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he only lived about 30 miles from me.
Okay.
So I got laid off work. So I worked at Mason, so I always got laid off in the winter. I got laid off, and I called him up, and he had, I didn't know a whole lot about curs other than that they were kind of a combo dog, and I had never hunted with one, but he said he had one female that was just 8 weeks old and not spoken for yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I packed right up. I went over there and I picked her up, and I took her home, and she was going to be the house dog, the family dog, and the hunting dog. She was going to be everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was 8 weeks old, and that was a Thanksgiving, Christmas morning. We had a squirrel come in the yard. She seen it through the window. She went crazy. I opened the door. She went out, and she got on the tree, and she was treeing like mad. So I ran out there. I shot that squirrel, and she grabbed that thing, and then I had a hard time catching her. And she was only 12 weeks old, you know.
That's funny.
And I thought, well, heck, I thought this is going to be pretty easy. So I spent, by that time, at 12 weeks old, I'm not going to coon hunt her anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
she spent all winter with me beaver trapping her. I just took 22, and that dog treats squirrels all winter.
There you go.
And she was just a really unique dog. Springtime came, and she was just over 6 months, like just maybe 2 weeks over 6 months, and we were walking into a beaver colony, and that head went up in the air, nose was going, and all of a sudden she went shooting out into the middle of a swamp. And I'm like, what is this dog doing? And I had no tracking collars or no anything. And she was out there just barking up a storm. And then I heard a coon fall. It's like, oh, great. Because this is not something I can walk in.
That's great.
She stayed after that coon until she got it to dry ground. It went up the first tree, and I still know where that tree is today.
Pretty memorable.
She's treeing like mad. I just thought, boy, you know, it can't get any easier than this.
Spoiled you right off the bat. Oh,
she did. It just a total natural with everything, which was good because I had been out of it a long time. I had no tracking collars, no shocking collars, no nothing. But she was just more than I could ever ask for.
Now, how long ago was that?
That was about 20 years ago.
Okay. Well, Steve, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. My name's Steve Block. I live in Amory, Wisconsin, about 30 miles from Gary Faulkner.
And we're talking about Faulkner Curs today.
Faulkner Curs. I bought my first dog from Gary, and then because he was so close, we developed a relationship, and we hunted together all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see all his dogs, hunt them and handle them, because as he got older, he couldn't do it himself anyway.
Yep.
And he had all kinds of good places to hunt, so I just packed up pretty much every night and went over there. We went hunting.
There you go.
With my dog and his dog, and we did that for a lot of years until he just plain couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. So for all the listeners, I called Gary wanting to talk Faulkner Curs, and he pointed me to Steve. He said, I'm out of the dog game. He said, call Steve.
Yeah. So right now I have 7 or 8. I have some other dogs too, but I think I have 7 or 8 Faulkner Curs.
Okay.
And I don't breed a lot, but I sure, maybe a litter or two a year if there's people that want them.
Mm-hmm.
but I sure enjoy hunting them. I hunt them on coon and bear. Every now and then they can't resist the bobcat.
That's not
And
bad.
I got a couple little run fishers, and they're kind of fun too. So I just let them go.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't squirrel hunt because we have so many fishers. I don't have any squirrels left in the woods.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much impossible unless I'm going to go into the city limits and chase them around town.
Yep. It's a good way to start pups. I mean, that's definitely for sure. But I understand what you mean.
Yeah, but to try and hunt them in the woods here, it's pretty frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
It's few and far between, and it's pretty hard to reward a dog when all they do is run till they hit a hole and you never get to see it.
Yeah. Now, since you obviously know Gary so well, do you know the history of the breed and how they kind of came about? And
Yeah.
because Gary actually informed me that my thought or what I had been told, read, whatever, was actually wrong. And I always thought that Faulkners were just kind of a line of Stevens, and Gary informed me that I was not correct.
Yeah. You know, he had dogs that were one time registered as Stevens dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they still look a lot like a Stevens dog. You know, that black color and the white trim varies quite a bit. But the Stevens dogs, I think it was Lindsay Smokey and Woods Possum John. That was kind of his starting point there. But George Toot out in Ohio had a lot of influence with Gary on Gary's breeding program. And Gary was never shy to cross onto anything as long as it had the proper traits and was a good dog.
Okay.
So there's been a lot of different things probably bred in over the years. Up where I live, there's not a lot of coon hunters up here, but there's lots of big game hunters.
Okay.
And these guys do not believe in papers,
so
you don't know what any of these things are. But they're good dogs. It's always been just best of the best, and they all call hard.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good dogs. And so he's picked some of that stuff over the years and crossed that in. Like I said, it's all based. Everything was based on getting the traits that he wanted.
And what did Gary want when he was breeding his dogs?
Well, what they are, it'd be a medium-nosed dog, extremely fast, good winding ability, good handling. They kind of have that cur. They've always maintained that cur mindset, cur brain, that they handle good. They want to please you.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what he's wanted. And he's wanted. I've never hunted a Stevens dog. I've seen a few at some hunts, but Gary's dogs, from what I've seen, are a little bigger.
Yeah. Most Stevens dogs, from what I understand, are tend to be more of a 30, 40-pound dog.
Yeah.
Or even smaller.
Yeah. The ones I've seen were actually smaller and kind of finer boned. But, we have big coon up in this country.
Oh, yeah.
You get plenty of 30-pound coon, some 35-pounders, and they don't tree worth a darn.
Okay.
You have to have a dog that can handle them on the ground, or you're not going to be in business long. I've hunted a lot of different places, and our coon up here they're a little different than like what I've hunted with Iowa and Missouri and Indiana and stuff. These coon just run and run and run.
Okay.
And they will not look at you in a tree. To find eyes, it's just a rare deal.
Well, when they're as big as a bear cub, I mean, it shouldn't need to.
Oh, no. But like they don't like to climb, so these dogs, and being fast, they catch plenty of them on the ground. And Gary actually had a guy up with a Stevens dog one time, and the guy lost his dog.
That's sad.
But
regardless,
the coon got down in the creek and killed the dog. And Gary himself, he was an old houndsman, so he really didn't want a little dog. But he didn't want something so big that he couldn't handle it.
So, how big would you say your dogs are?
My males run in that 45 to 55 pound range.
Okay.
And the females, some are on that 35, but most of them are right around that 40 to 45.
Okay. That's kind of like size I like.
Yeah, there was a dog that Gary owned. Her registered name was Lucy, but everybody knew her as Cricket, and she was really small, but she was really good, and she really produced.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and then, some of the small stuff still comes through.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I kind of like that 45-pound dog with a lot of legs.
Yeah.
I like the athletic racing dog, I guess.
No, I agree. I mean, that's kind of where my dogs fall, and that's what I really like as far as size as well.
Okay.
Not too big, not too small. Kind of that little sweet spot right there.
Yeah. And then I can fit more of them in the dog box, too, when I go bear hunting.
Yep.
Yep.
I know Gary told me when I was talking to him, he said the first dogs he got were just 2 black grade cur dogs out of West Virginia, and that's where it all started. Because when I talked to him, I asked him a little bit, and that was one of the things he said. And he did tell me about George and crossing a lot of the Toots blood in.
Okay. Yep.
But he didn't say much about crossing in like the other hound or grade dogs, whatever they were, from up your way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he really doesn't talk about that much. But it's, I mean, you have to have something to breed to.
Oh yeah.
And so, you basically outcross and then come back towards the cur.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know WTDA registers them. Does anybody else?
NKC.
Okay, they are NKC registered as well.
Yep.
I wasn't sure.
From what I understand, a lot of the other registries will register them, but they'll register them as a tree and cur rather than a Faulkner.
Yeah. Now, how many Faulkner breeders do you think there are? You?
Probably just me right now.
Okay.
At one time there was a handful, but they were all in Gary's age range,
Mm-hmm.
and they've either passed away or they just can't do it.
Yeah.
And he never pursued anybody. It's the younger generation. He just kind of got set with his old ways.
Mm-hmm.
I actually asked him a couple of years ago, when was the last time he sold a dog to somebody that was younger than 50 years old? And he couldn't answer it because a lot of it's just been repeat people that just keep coming back. They buy one dog and they're ready for another one, and that's where they go because they like what they have.
At this point, I think most people wouldn't be very familiar with them. It's not like they get too much publicity.
No, they don't. Gary doesn't even own a cell phone.
That doesn't surprise me.
So I feel like I'm kind of, technology-wise, I feel a little challenged at times, but I'm miles ahead of him. Yeah, I think, that if he'd have been more up to date with that stuff, I think he could have grown it or kept growing it because he's placed them in 42 states, I believe.
Wow.
Over the years.
Mm-hmm. I know. So I found Faulkners years ago, reading Full Cry, and I know he was recognized by WTDA a couple times as like breeder of the year, and they were definitely known about back when he was breeding a lot and everything. But obviously, like you said, as his age as he's gotten older and gotten out of them and stopped promoting them, and been less and less you hear about them.
Yeah, and up in this country where we live, there's just no market for cur dogs.
Okay.
There's no hunts for them up here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I want to try and title out a dog, the closest place I can go is Iowa, and that's probably 5.5 hours away.
That's hard. I mean, if that's the closest place,
and
you'd have to be very dedicated to try and title a dog out.
Yeah, you do. And I titled some when I first got going with them. I went to a lot of hunts just because the main reason was I wanted to see what else was out there.
Mm-hmm.
If there was something, I always told Gary if I can find poodles that are better than these, that's what I'm going to hunt.
Yeah.
And he'd give me a dirty look all the time, But if I'm going to be feeding it, I want good dogs.
Definitely.
And I've always been more than satisfied with what I've had.
Now, you said you run coon and bear.
Yep.
So that's kind of one of the things that interested me was I knew Gary ran bear with his dogs, and so I live in Pennsylvania where we're not allowed to run bears, but I travel to West Virginia and Virginia, and I do bear hunt a little bit.
Okay.
But I need a dog that I can primarily coon hunt, So
Yep.
I'm looking for a dog. Like when I'm looking at different dogs and stuff, I'm looking for a dog that I can do both with. So that's one of the things that kind of caught my attention with the Faulkners and why I wanted to find a little more out about them a little more.
Okay.
So can you tell me a little bit about how they hunt and, the pros and cons of them versus, I'm sure you hunt with plenty of hounds through the years, so.
Yep. I have some hounds. I have a couple black and tans.
Okay.
And the reason I have them is because we hunt off dates over here.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's 12, 14 hours old, I need that colder nose dog to get it going.
Gotcha.
For a long time, I just hunted with the curs. I never baited. I just rigged.
Mm-hmm.
And if they bark, then we go.
Yeah.
And I think I had more fun doing that, to be honest. But I kind of have a sweet spot for my black and tans. That's what I had when I was, years ago too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're such excellent rig dogs. I've seen it where we've had a bait hit and driving into it, and I had a little dog. His name was Smokey Joe. And one time, Smokey Joe's up on the rig, and I'm driving into the bait, and they've got a couple hounds down, and they couldn't get the track going. And Smokey Joe's up on top of my truck, just going absolutely crazy. He's just rigging his heart out. And I didn't know, at the time, I just thought he was just being stupid and excited because them dogs were down and he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up there and I just let him down. Well, he went beelining out probably 400 or 500 yards out in the swamp, and he got the bear going.
Nice.
Because he pulled the scent where that hound has his nose on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
He's hunting the air current.
Yeah.
And I've had him go as far as 800 yards with his nose in the air, bear to bear. I've had him rig bear dens in the wintertime. And so it's just a little different hunting the cur than the hound.
Yeah.
But it's nice having both, so you have the options too.
Definitely. Now, when you're coon hunting one, how far out do most of your dogs range out?
They're probably 70, 100 yards.
Okay.
My theory is they're all tone broke, and they tone break really easy.
Mm-hmm.
I can still go in just a tiny little 5-10 acre patch of woods and turn them loose. With today's technology, you see them getting where they're, to the edge of the property or wherever, you just tone them back.
Mm-hmm.
I always figure I can reel them in, but I can't make them go.
Yeah.
So I want one that's going to get out there and go.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to know the difference if you want to walk hunt. A lot of times they don't hunt as far and they check in more often.
Okay.
But if you sit on the tailgate, they're going to go.
Gotcha.
If you spend enough time with them, they kind of figure out what you want.
Mm-hmm.
They're real personable, really like to please.
Yeah.
A friend of mine that hunts one, he was trying to break her off a deer, and he had always hunted real soft dogs. And these guys they're not soft.
Okay.
They got a lot of hunt in them, and so he kind of got behind the 8-ball breaking them off deer because he was afraid he was going to take the hunt out of them.
Yeah. And
then he figured out that she responded better to him being mad than to electricity, that it hurt her feelings if he got mad at her. And that's kind of the way they are. If you, like I said, if you spend that personal time,
Yeah.
It's a little different if they're just tied out and you just, feed them and hunt them. But
Mm-hmm.
if you actually make them your pet, they really buddy up to you and like to please you.
Yeah. Well, that's, kind of what curs are known for, and kind of the typical personality of most curs. And so, especially if that's kind of what Gary was after, is that cur personality and brains, and that would explain that.
Yep. To me, that's what makes them a pleasure to hunt.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely.
If they're hunting, hunting kind of with me and doing what I want.
Mm-hmm. Now, do they open on track, semi-open on track, or?
Yeah, they're wide open.
Okay.
They might be a little tight mouth until they get something going,
mm-hmm.
but once they've got something, they're wide open.
Most of them have a chop mouth or ball mouth.
Just about all of them are chop mouth.
Okay.
Some of them, I've had a few that have had ball mouth on the tree.
Okay. Interesting.
There's a lot of them have had a really good ball mouth changeover, then back to the chop.
Gotcha. That's
But
nice.
it seems like, that's really nice.
A straight chop dog can be hard sometimes. I had a plot here for a little while that he was straight chop no matter what, and didn't have much of a changeover. You really had to be listening, and at times it was like, I think he's treed. Let me sit here and listen for a second, and if it's not moving, I think he is.
Yeah, and that little Smoky Joe dog I had, he changed throughout the years. He started out, he had a triple chop, and he was so loud you didn't even want to walk into that tree. It hurt your ears. He was just insane. And then as he got older, what he developed was this beautiful ball locate, and then just a nice easy chop.
Okay.
You'd take somebody hunting them, and they'd be listening, and as soon as I'd hear that, I'd say, "Well, load the gun because he's got it." And they'd look at me and go, "What do you mean?" Yeah, he just told me he's got it. Deadly accurate.
It's always good.
Yeah.
Nobody likes walking into a slick tree.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen with these guys. I can probably count on one hand how many I've had over the years.
That's pretty impressive.
And two of them were where a bear hit the water, and the dog grabbed the tree right at the shoreline.
Okay.
I could look and see where the bear hit the water when I got up there. And then we're bear at night. So
okay.
Other than that, they're really track minded, and I think that helps with that. Sometimes mine I have to work a little bit to get them, real good on the tree. For the most part, they've got it figured out, but they really do love to run that track.
Yeah.
So they're going to hit that tree, and then they're going to check, and then they're going to hit the tree, and then they're going to check themselves again.
I know the one thing Gary was saying when I talked to him, he said, in order to catch and tree a lot of bears and bobcats up in your country, he said, dogs really have to have a second gear. He goes, and put that extra pressure on once they jump it.
Yep.
And he said a lot of dogs he's hunted throughout the years, they didn't have that. And that's one thing that he's bred for, and that's what he really liked is a dog, once it jumped, it kicked it into high gear and put that extra pressure on. And that's what made him so successful with these dogs.
Oh, and he's right there, because these guys, when they get something going, they're running to catch it. These guys all love fur in the mouth. Some people say you can't, you don't want to shoot too many coon out, this and that. Not these guys. They want to catch everything that they run.
Yeah.
They would just as soon be on the ground and not in the tree. We were bear hunting, Gary and I, one time, and he had Tug and I had Smoky Joe, and that's father-son.
Okay.
And we had the old telemetry system. We were with a group of guys that we had never hunted with before, and had the bear going. Gary and I were on the north side of the section. Them guys were on the south side, and all of a sudden we heard on the radio, these curs, they came out to this road. We don't know what they were doing, but we grabbed them and threw them in the dog box. And I didn't know what was going on, but we just stayed on that north road. The dogs were somewhere in the middle that we could hear from time to time. And then about 10 minutes later, oh, here come the dogs. They just crossed, but we don't see the bear. Well, the curs were that far ahead of them.
That's funny.
So needless to say, I got on the radio and said, "Can you turn the dogs loose, them cur dogs loose again?"
Yeah.
But yeah, they flat out fly. They give you everything they got.
Nice. Now, back to the appearance of the dogs. I meant to ask you, do they pretty much only come in black, or do you ever get anything else color-wise?
So, brindle is acceptable also.
Okay.
I actually have, my last litter was born a year ago, and I have never had any off-colored dogs, and I got 3 brindles. And I know them, I know the whole pedigree, 4 generations back. I've hunted with most of them, and there was none of that. But it came through.
Interesting. Yeah, the only ones
And
I've ever seen were black, so that's why I just wasn't sure if there was any other
yeah,
acceptable colors or not.
yep, brindle's acceptable.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
I actually kept one.
I would have too, especially, you hadn't seen it in that many years and it just popped up. I probably would
Yeah,
have.
yeah. He's brindle with white trim, and he's beautiful. The neighbor lady, she calls him Hollywood because he's so pretty. When I opened the whelping box, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And then people all want to know where that comes from, and
Mm-hmm.
that's always a question. That's everybody's burning question is where that stuff comes from. But when you go back, even with the Stevens dog, everything was registered as cur dogs at one time. The Stevens dogs were registered with the Mountain Curs.
Yep.
So it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it can come from some flat blood.
Well, and we both talked about how Gary bred to George Toots dogs. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
his dogs were brindle.
Yep.
So,
And there was always controversy of what he had in his dog, too.
yes, there was.
It's kind of funny how there's a lot of controversy around success.
Yep.
But
there's a lot of that blood still. I mean, it's not close, but if you go back in a lot of pedigrees, you're gonna find it.
oh yeah, yep. There's a lot of good stuff that came from there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
It's always fun to see stuff come back through.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Now, when you were running the hunts, how did your Faulkners do in the hunts compared to the other curs?
The first dog I took was that first one I got, the Molly dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize it because I hadn't hunted her with strange dogs enough. She was kind of a piece of work. She did not like to tree with. The first tree was fine, but after that, she didn't want to tree with another dog.
Okay.
So she would do stuff like get like first strike, first tree, and then she would move over a little bit and grab another tree and try and convince them to come over there. And she would do that to my pups too, and then she would go back and sit under the right tree and let them bark at the wrong tree.
I had a grade mixed up cur dog that did the same thing.
Yeah. So but she did some neat things. I was down in Missouri with her, and we turned out and went in a field road a little bit. Turned out, and as soon as we turned out, we heard two coon fighting. And that dog, instead of going in a straight line, there was a creek, and we had crossed the bridge. And, maybe she had smelled them from there, but she ran back the road, down the road, across the bridge, and then went up the coon. And one of the guys goes, "I'm scratching my dog. I just want to watch it. I've never seen nothing like that."
That's funny.
And then, so I just quit hunting her, and I took another dog I had. Her name was Dottie. And Dottie, she lost one. Well, she lost two calves.
That's impressive.
One was I let somebody else hunt her, and he wouldn't call her treed. He had never done it before.
Mm-hmm. So handler error, not dog error.
Yeah, and after the hunt, one of the guys in the cast, he wanted to buy her. He goes, "That dog is something else." And then another one, the other one that she lost, she opened, dog went with her, and we were down in southwest Minnesota, and it was in the spring, and it was about 30-mile-an-hour winds, snow was blowing, and they went across this open field, and I couldn't even hear her. And the other guy called his dog treed. Well, when we got there, I eventually called her treed on the way there, but she was in the bottom of a deep ridge on the lake shore, and the other guy's dog was sitting on top of that ridge, basically looking at the coon.
Gotcha.
So you couldn't hear her because she was down in that hole with the wind.
Mm-hmm.
But there again, and he was a pretty experienced houndsman.
Mm-hmm.
He was quite the dog jockey back in his day, so he got the best of me. But I don't think he got the best of the dog,
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, you couldn't beat her. She was built for competition hunting.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, she was one of them. She'd kick rocks in your face when you turned her loose and just flat out go until she was treed.
Yeah.
We were at a hunt one time, and I spent all afternoon in the clubhouse listening to a guy tell me he had the coldest nosed cur dog. He had the coldest nosed line of cur dogs that you can find in the country. Well, I drew him out, and we turned loose, and I don't know where Dottie went, but his dog and another dog went to the cornfield, and they opened up, couldn't move the track. They left. So they got minus. They went back and forth to that same spot until they got minus, or until they got minus out.
Yeah.
And I don't know where, like I said, I didn't know where Dottie was. All of a sudden, Dottie comes rolling in. She goes right to where they were, opens up, and just runs out of there like she's looking at it. And she probably went a quarter mile to the end of the cornfield, and she was out in a big old fever swamp. So it kind of burst his bubble there about the cold nose theory of his dog.
Now, what kind of bear dogs was he hunting?
He had Canadian furs.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say nothing, but as soon as you asked.
I was just curious. And actually, I was just talking to a guy about Canadians the other day, and heck, I don't know if you could find one if you wanted to.
I don't think so. No, not too many left out there.
No, I mean, I don't know. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a lot of these, like, smaller offshoot cur breeds, and it seems like a lot of them are now kind of drying up and or have and no longer being produced because you had very few people breeding them.
Right.
So once those breeders went out, nobody kind of stepped up and took their place.
Yep. Yeah. And I would hate to see that happen with the Faulkners. There's still a good following, but they're all older guys, you know, and they don't want to deal with all the puppies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They just as soon buy one pup and hunt it till it can't go no more.
Yep. It's a shame. You have to get on all the social medias and start promoting them.
You know, the last litter I had, they went pretty good. I was surprised. And this year I've been a little hesitant. I just don't know what the market is out there with the price of gas and all that stuff right now. I'm not sure where it's at. And like I said, I'm not in cur country here.
Now, even though you're not in cur country per se, like typically when there's somebody that's breeding a line of dogs, other local people see them and buy them. Is there a handful of local people that, or fairly local people that have them, or are you pretty much the only one?
I'm pretty much the only one. There's a buddy of mine that he's got two of them now. He had one and he just got another one from me. Most of these guys are really set on their old family line of the same old.
Okay.
And like the big game thing, that's kind of it's always a group thing. And you have a lot of cliquey little group, and you'll go to some of these bear hunter things, and them guys, they'll get in fist fights over who's got the best breeder dog. It's just terrible. But I sold a couple to a bobcat hunter up in northern part of the state on my last litter, and he deals in a lot of dogs. He told me right out, he goes, the reason I'm getting these, he said, is because these are going to shorten the chase for me.
There you go.
You know, so he knows. And then I think some of these hound guys have trouble relating to the curs, you know, because they are a little different.
Yeah.
And they just don't want to change their ways.
It takes a different style a little bit different style of handling and training them than it does hounds. So if you're set in your ways and you're used to a hound, then I can see where it definitely is a shift.
Yep. And, you know, I've seen where I ran into it at one time where some of these cur dogs really don't want to go hunt with them hounds for some reason.
Okay.
Since I've got a couple hounds at home, that hasn't been an issue because they grow up with them.
Yeah.
But there's just a different mindset with a cur dog over a hound. I'm not sure how to put a finger on it completely, but when I hunted with a dog, it was a top 16 in automobile one year. And we turned out, and my dog went open, and that dog wouldn't go to mine. Which was funny because then mine ran and treed, and his didn't. But I'd take Little Smoky Joe, and he would check them. You could tell if the dog was good or not when I took Little Smoky Joe, because if they weren't good, he'd avoid them totally.
Okay.
If they went one way, you could send them across the road, and for some reason, he had a peg. He turned go the other way.
He just said, "I'll go do my own thing, huh?"
Yeah, it was kind of different, but you know, mine always hunted together, and if there was something up and going, they weren't going to pass it up.
Gotcha.
They, you know, when you're bear hunting, no, they weren't they weren't going to get left out.
Mhm.
But they've got an independent streak, and you could see it sometimes. A lot of times when they were hunting with the hounds. Unless, like I said, I've had no problem with that with mine growing up with hounds.
Yeah.
I've got a big old male black and tan. When I have a litter of pups, as soon as they start to wander around, I go tie him out with them, and they all buddy up with him. Sometimes you go out in the morning, you'll have all the puppies in the doghouse with him, and mom by herself. I think socialization is just huge with all the curs.
Yeah.
More so than the hounds. The hounds are just, a lot of them are just like everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Or nobody.
Yep.
But the hounds, the curs seem to be they can be really family oriented and just like they're people at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually tried to get away from that.
Okay.
A little bit. I think that any kid that comes in my yard should be able to walk up to any dog.
Yeah.
And
I understand that.
If that can't happen, then I can't live with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, another interesting story or two of some more of your adventures with these black dogs.
I have one good memorable one with Gary one night. We had two guys coming to look at that dog, and the one guy was a red bone man, and he was bringing an employee of his that just wanted to get his first dog. He thought that a cur dog would be a good fit for him and his little boy. And Gary had an old Chevy truck with just regular cab. So the red bone and I, we rode on the back of the truck to our first hunting spot. And the whole way there, he was ranting and raving about his red bone. He was giving me a pretty good line. He had his boy with too. And we turned loose, and I had Dottie with that night. And I think Gary had Pete. And them two took off, and they went. There was no time. They had Echoing up and going on the cornfield. But where Gary lives, lots of ridges. So everything's up and down. And really steep. So you drive around a lot of times to get closer to the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And in no time at all, they were up and over. And we drove around and said, oh, no, they're over the next ridge too. And we got over there. And we walked in. And it took quite a while to get there. And them dogs were just giving it. And we got in there. And he's got his little boy, and I ain't ever seen nothing like this. This is beautiful. And he goes, can I take pictures of these?
Changing the hound guys' minds.
And I was just thinking, boy, you should never brag about your dog.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like they say in Hollywood,
Dog will make you a liar quicker than anything.
Yeah, they're terrible. Here used to tell a story about he had Old Ugly, which everything was pretty much based off of.
Okay.
He had a guy come to see Old Ugly. Old Ugly treated like 4 possums that night. He had never treated possums before.
Hey, he's a tree dog. That's what matters.
Yeah. All you can do is laugh sometimes,
Yep. Definitely.
But, no, I just enjoy the heck out of them. And like I said, I don't know how many times I've had hound guys with me, and especially on the rigging, because these guys are so good. They'll blow up, and they come off the top of that truck, and it's not looking for a track. They're lined out.
Okay.
And these guys are like, I ain't ever seen nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the hounds, they typically get out, and they just don't come off there like them. These guys are just like a rocket.
Yeah.
More often than not, they've got it figured out, and they're going.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's my favorite way to hunt.
Yeah.
It's harder and harder to find places to do it, but it's a lot of fun when you can get in a good ground and hunt like that.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm the opposite down here. We can't bait in West Virginia and Virginia where I hunt. So you either rigging or you're walking a ridge or something like that, trying to find something. So
yeah, Gary sold a lot of dogs to bear hunters in West Virginia way back when, and I think it was kind of some tight knit family stuff that didn't let any of it out, so to speak. But I know they were pretty successful out there.
Awesome. Maybe I'll have to try one of these days. If I had my way, I'd have a whole pack of mixed one of everything. see what I like. I've talked to Kemmer people, tree and Tennessee brindle guys. I have leopards.
Okay.
So I've talked to a lot of people, and I'd probably have like I said, one of everything and run it all together to see what I thought the best was if I could.
Yep. I have a leopard here too. She was a charity case. She killed guys' chickens.
Okay.
And he was about ready to do her in, and wife showed up at my doorstep with the dog. And I had started her, so I kept her.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on here tonight.
Yeah.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep 'em talking in the timber.